She's going to be talking about her adventures today, but she's also a historian, and you will love her books on Amazon and Kindle, so if you Google her name, you can get her books. And we really enjoyed it so much that we invited her back to talk about her travels, which I did follow, and they're really fun. And with that, Cathy.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thanks for inviting me to come today. It was a pleasure for me to prepare this for you because I got to relive the memories, so I'm excited about sharing them with you. In 2020, my husband and I, he had retired already, and then I was able to retire shortly after him. Just move over here so you can see. And we had been planning for about 5 years for what we would do after retirement. And one of those things was to travel. We wanted to go to every state in the continental United States. That was our goal. And we wanted to see every national park in the continental United States. And we wanted to do it with our 2 big dogs. We have had at that time a Chesapeake Bay Retriever and a Doberman Pinscher. And it's not easy to travel with big dogs, especially one who's labeled aggressive. Some campgrounds will not let you do that. So I actually spent about 3 years planning the trip. But now let's talk about planning, because I'm a planner. I've always been a planner. My friends know I'm a planner. Some of them even call me to plan their vacations for them. But my husband is very spontaneous. He doesn't like to be stuck on an itinerary. He doesn't like to have a routine. He doesn't like to have to be somewhere every night. And so we started discussing how we were going to get this trip, and I had to remind him that sometimes when you're going to someplace that's really popular, you can't find a place to stay. And so he agreed that we would plan for the popular places, but we would be spontaneous in between them. And we only had to spend 1 night in a Cracker Barrel parking lot. We purchased this 25-foot travel trailer. It's a toy hauler. The back of it comes down, makes a ramp. And so we could load his motorcycles in the back. He believes you should never go somewhere without at least 1 motorcycle, but he prefers 2. And I don't ride a motorcycle, so don't ask me why he thinks he needs 2. We traveled with 2 motorcycles, and they went in the ramp at the back, and our bed was up in the front, and we had a kitchen, and we were all set to go. This is our cast of characters. Of course, you can see me. I'm a retired historian. But the interesting thing about me is that museums for me are like going to work, because I worked in museums my whole life. So I really prefer more things outdoors. I prefer hiking and rafting and things like that. My husband is a retired auto parts manager. He worked in the Buick industry for over 40 years. And he's a great guy to have along because if something breaks, he can fix it. And then our canine travelers, and who turned out to be our bloggers, were Corey. She's a Chesapeake Bay Retriever. She was 7 at the time that we went. She's very sensitive and solemn, very wise. And so she was our historian, our scholar, and our scientist. Lark, she's a Doberman Pinscher. She was 2 at the time. She's very impulsive and boisterous, and she's just looking for a good time. She's our party girl. And so the 2 of them, we launched a blog, and the 2 of them began blogging, talking about their day and the places we went, whether they were dog-friendly, whether they were fun. Glenn and I had to add in some blog posts because there were some places they just couldn't go. So we would write about the places that weren't dog-friendly. But they wrote about a lot of the places that we went. So where did we go? Well, we managed to go to 32 states. Our plan was to go to 48. But you know what happened? 2 weeks before we were supposed to leave, COVID hit. We were supposed to leave on March 18th. And we delayed our trip we left on March the 30th after consulting with our doctors who told us to get out of Florida. Because we were traveling in a travel trailer, we were self-quarantined. The only things we had to buy were gas and groceries. And we made sure we wore masks and gloves and were We're safe that way. So we made it to 32 states. We did not get to Louisiana because Texas was threatening not to let anybody in if they've been to Louisiana. We didn't get to California because things were pretty bad there. We didn't get to New England and a few states right in the middle of the country. But we managed to get to 32 states, and we had a wonderful time. We were gone 7 months. So today, when I started thinking about all the wonderful things we got to do and see, Glenn and I, of course, had some places that were special to us, places the dogs couldn't go. But since we were talking about traveling with the canines, I decided I'd just limit it to 10 of the places that we went to. There were lots more places we could have talked. We could stay here a week. My friend Penny is in the back, and every time she's with me, we talk for hours about the things we saw. But we're going to just talk about 10 of the places that we got to see. Sometimes living on the road wasn't easy. We'll just get that right out here, right in the beginning. You see Lark there, up there with a green band across the front of her picture. We found that traveling with 2 big dogs is like traveling with a couple of toddlers. She's on my side. She's on my side. She's sitting here. She's blah, blah, blah. I can't see. You'll notice in that picture that Corey's paw is actually under the divider. We had to put up a net divider across the back seat to keep them separated. The second day we were on the road, Corey bit the tip of Lark's ear off. So that was a great way to start traveling. They did eventually get used to being on the road and got nicer to each other, but for a while we were having to really keep them separated. It was just stressful to be out of their routine, and that caused them to get a little irritated with each other. We also, we were being spontaneous, and sometimes we had a hard time finding a place to stay. The second picture there is Foss Creek State Park in Oklahoma. We drove quite a while before we could find an empty campsite in Oklahoma. And then sometimes the weather was bad. It might rain, it might be foggy, snowed on us a couple of times, but we still managed to have a good time. But then, of course, there was always COVID behind us, chasing us around and making us think about where we were supposed to be and how we were supposed to get there. But for every missed opportunity that we had, we found something even better. We hadn't planned to go to Flagstaff, which is where the church is. We got to spend about a week in Flagstaff, Arizona, and that was a wonderful place to be. When we got to Rocky Mountain National Park, the roads were closed because of a heavy snow, but we were able to get up to a place where they were having you park your car, and then we could walk on the road, so the dogs were able to get out and walk with us in a place that they normally would not have been able to be. We hadn't planned to go to Grayson Highlands State Park in Virginia, where the wild ponies are, but we managed to get there and see the wild ponies. And then we also went to New River Gorge National Park, which is the newest national park in the national park set there in West Virginia, Fayetteville, West Virginia. Our first stop, after having to travel to make up the time that we had missed by leaving 2 weeks late, and the fact that Texas was pretty much closed down, our first stop we kind of raced to Albuquerque, New Mexico. Albuquerque was a beautiful place, and we got to spend quite a bit of time there. Corey's favorite place was the Paseo del Bosque Trail, which is a 16-mile multi-use trail right along the Rio Grande River. And as we went, the dogs blogged. And so as we go today, I'm going to read you 10 of their blogs where they talk about what they saw and what was good about it. And you'll hear Corey's voice and you'll hear Lark's voice. I'm going to try not to tell you, like you say, Corey said, Lark said. I'm just going to read the conversation to you, but I'll tell you the first dog who starts so you can kind of keep track of who's talking. But I think by the time we're done, you'll figure out who's who. So Corey starts out and she says, "We've enjoyed our time in Albuquerque because Albuquerque is definitely dog friendly." Lark: "I said that yesterday." "Look, we're not going to talk over each other this time. I will tell you about my favorite place, and then you can tell about yours. We'll take turns. What if you tell about my favorite place?" "Lark, just be quiet." "We did a lot of fun things in Albuquerque, but my favorite was hiking on the Paso del Bosque Trail in Rio Grande Valley State Park. We started out on the asphalt trail that was used for bicycles, but soon we moved off the pavement onto a sandy trail that led through the cottonwoods to the Rio Grande River. There's a sandy beach and a place for swimming. I so enjoyed my swim. There were both deep and shallow areas, and the water was so calm and refreshing. After my swim, we walked for a long time, stopping at different wildlife ponds where the geese and beavers made their home. We saw a lot of other people walking their dogs or riding their bikes or both. It was a lovely way to spend the day, and one of the things that makes Albuquerque a great place for dogs. Is it finally my turn? My favorite place was Petroglyph National Monument. There are 4 walking trails, and 3 of them allow dogs. We walked on the Canyon Trail. Be sure and tell them about the 1.5-mile round-trip trail with 300 to 500 petroglyphs. Corey, you don't need to coach me. What she said. To get to the petroglyphs, we went down into the canyon. Tell them about the wildflowers and the cactus. If you don't stop talking, I'm going to put a muzzle on you. Yes, there were flowers and cactus, but we were there to see the petroglyphs. Supposedly, they were done hundreds of years ago by native peoples who lived in the area, but to me, they look kind of like graffiti that you see underneath the freeway. Kind of cartoonish, not at all understandable. Mom was oohing and awing over them and taking hundreds of pictures. Just think how long they've been here. Aren't we lucky that they're preserved? That was her opinion. After a long time of standing in the sun while she angled her camera this way and that, we finally turned around and went back to the truck. Now I'm going to tell them about Old Town Albuquerque. Old Town Albuquerque is where the original settlers came to and settled Albuquerque in 1706. The historical district is about 10 blocks of historic adobe buildings surrounding a plaza. We got our pictures made in front of some cannons used during the Civil War by Confederate troops who invaded New Mexico, and in front of San Felipe de Neri Church. The church has been a house of worship for over 300 years. Old Town Albuquerque was a cool place to visit, and we saw lots of people out walking their dogs. Are you done? Let's tell them about the snow. That was more fun than walking around a dumb historic district. We drove in the truck to the top of the Sandia Crest. We stopped along the way at some overlooks, and there was snow. I'd never seen snow. I loved it. It was freezing cold, and I didn't have my coat on, so I started shivering. Mom took more pictures and was talking about how pretty it all was. I just wanted to get back in the truck. Well, I think that pretty much sums up Albuquerque. We really enjoyed our visit and hope to come back next time. Well, what the girls and I didn't know was that around the corner was another 2-week stay in Albuquerque that wasn't planned. We had promised we weren't going to drive in snow, and the day we were supposed to leave Albuquerque, it was snowing. We waited until about noon when the snow quit and the sky turned blue, and we got in our truck and trailer and got on the interstate, and at the first exit, a car came on, spun around in the ice, and totaled our travel trailer.
Oh my goodness.
Damaged the truck as well. I'll put in a plug here for Hartford Automobile Insurance through AARP. They were wonderful. They paid for a brand new trailer, but it had to come from Nebraska. So we spent another 2 weeks at the La Quinta Inn in Albuquerque. If you've never been to a La Quinta Inn with a big dog, it's an experience. They were very nice. They actually closed off their courtyard so the dogs could have that as their run and play area. But it was a long 2 weeks, and we didn't expect to spend that much time in Albuquerque. But we moved on, and we went to Sedona, Arizona. We fell in love with Sedona, and because California was closed, we spent another 2 weeks in Sedona that we hadn't planned. We had just planned to be there for a couple of nights, but it was such a beautiful place that we decided to stay there since we couldn't go to California. And so the girls are here on Airport Mesa, and they're going to tell you a little bit about Sedona. This is Lark starting out. Someone needs to call animal control. These people are trying to kill me. Mom wanted to go hiking. She's all about hiking. Let's get out and see nature. The only nature I want to see is the back of my eyelids, unless it's a big wild animal. I might wake up for that. Anyway, Mom had this great idea that we would go hiking here in Sedona. And she had a list of trails that were easy trails, good for people with no hiking experience, ages 2 to 92, whatever. So she gave Dad directions and off we went, what she thought was a 3-mile loop. Remember that word, loop. We went to a place called Boynton Canyon. Boynton Canyon, we saw this weird man in the parking lot who gave us directions to the trailhead, but he told us to stay away from the vortex because it would turn us bisexual, whatever that means. Then we saw a sign that said it was a secret trail. I thought, perfect for hiding bodies. I just didn't know it was going to be mine. We started off on the trail, and all it was rocks. I don't mean to be sassy, but you know how I feel about rocks. And it was straight up the side of a mountain. It was pretty. Mom and Dad kept taking a lot of pictures. We went up over the side of the mountain and down into a canyon with lots of pine trees and a dry wash, a stream with rocks. The trail was flat, and we kept going thinking we were on a loop trail and we were going to end up back in the parking lot. But then some people with a tiny dog that they were carrying came by and told us it wasn't a loop trail. It was 3 miles out and 3 miles back. It took us a couple of hours to get out of the canyon. I knew I was going to die any minute. If you go hiking, here are my new rules. Don't kill anybody, especially the dogs. Read the trail map carefully and take it with you. Take more water than you think, even if it's heavy. Take some snacks. Plan on being out a lot longer than you think. Don't judge distance based upon Florida standards. A mile in Florida is different than a mile in the mountains. Take your asthma medicine with you. This is very important. Wear hiking boots, even if they don't match your outfit. Don't wear sandals, even if they're walking sandals. And watch out for the vortex. These are some varied landscapes of Sedona. We did have a beautiful time there, especially Oak Creek, which ran right through our campground, and we spent a lot of time there. Plus, out in the desert, we rented a Jeep and went off-roading in the Jeep, and we had just a great time in Sedona. And 20 miles north of Sedona was Flagstaff, and we got to spend some time there. They have a beautiful historic district, and they have a place called Buffalo Park that was once an amusement park the city owns. It's 100 square miles, and you can take your dog for walks there. It was flat, by the way. It was a good place to walk. But the most fun thing we did while in Flagstaff was we took Lark to Bearzona. It's a drive-through zoo. You've never been to a zoo unless you've been to a zoo with the Doberman in the back seat. I'll just leave it at that. And we also got to go to Winslow, which is just a little ways away from Flagstaff. Winslow had an impression on the girls, and they wrote about it, so let me read what they had to say about it. Corey's starting out. We had the best afternoon. We discovered a town that Mom and Dad thought was made up. Lark. Rocks, rocks, rocks. All we saw today was rocks. Hush, Lark, it's my vlog. I'm telling them, Corey, there's nothing in Arizona but rocks. Red rocks, black rocks, little rocks, big rocks. Rock-a-bye, baby, in the treetops. Listen to me. Be quiet, or else. Or else what? Or else I'll bite you again. Hey, Corey, what do you and Arizona have in common? I don't know, but if I let you tell me, will you go away? You both have big butts. That's it. Okay, I'm out of here. Today we went to Winslow, Arizona. Is that the town that Mom and Dad sang the song about? The one about the Ford with the flat tire? It's a flatbed Ford. Just go somewhere else. I'm going. But they were singing another song today that I think was about you. It was called Bitchy Woman. That's Witchy Woman. Now, go away. Winslow is a town the Eagles sung about in their song Take It Easy, which was released in 1972. That was Mom and Dad's music era, you know. Winslow was incorporated in 1900 and was a major transportation hub of the railroad until the 1950s and Route 66 until the 1970s. Mom was really excited about Winslow. She loved how the downtown had been restored and different kinds of businesses made their home there. Did you tell them how Mom and Dad made us sit on the corner? So dumb. What was dumb was when you growled at the statue. That was so funny. Well, it looked real to me. Anyway, they got pictures of us, and they should have been happy with that. I don't know what's so interesting about a dumb corner. Clark, it's part of the song. Don't you get it? Standing on the corner of Winslow, Arizona? I suppose you're going to say that Winslow rocks. You got rocks in your head. Anyway, everyone should go to Winslow. Any place that makes your mom and dad sing is a great place to visit. It's definitely dog-friendly and a cool place. You know what, Corey? We didn't stand. Dad made us sit. After we spent some time in Arizona, we went on to northern Arizona to Jacobs Lake, which is where the north rim of the Grand Canyon is located. I've always wanted to see the Grand Canyon, never been able to see it, and I had heard that the north rim was better for people with dogs. So we went to the north rim of the Grand Canyon, and Corey's going to start out telling you about it. We came to Jacobs Lake, Arizona, to see the north rim of the Grand Canyon. It's been one of Mom's bucket list things. I don't know what kind of a bucket she means. The only bucket I know is about the water bucket. Don't interrupt, Lark. But when we got here, the national park was closed. The campground host said it might be closed all summer. Mom and Dad were so disappointed. What's the big deal about more rocks? But then the lady at the campground told Mom that they didn't have to go into the park to see the Grand Canyon. There were Forest Service trails that we could drive on to get there. So we all piled in the car and drove forever. After we left the highway, we drove about an hour on a gravel road through the woods until we came to a sign telling us about the 4 viewing points. They were each about 8 miles off the main Forest Service road, and they were really rough roads. But Dad just kept driving. He wanted to see the Grand Canyon too. We got out of the car at the first viewing area called Timp Point and walked down a trail and then out on some rocks. I have to say, out of all the rocks I've seen on this trip, the ones at Timp Point were the best. They were not just the best, they were awesome. The Grand Canyon stretches for miles and miles, as far as you can see, all the way to the horizon. This big canyon with high walls, it looked like a painting, but we were standing on the rocks looking at it. Well, we were standing back at the rocks. Mom didn't let us get too close. Remember how she freaked out when Dad disappeared off the rock? He found a trail and was exploring, but Mom thought he fell off. It was a funny lark. I was worried too. He always comes back. It's a deep canyon. You never know. Someone might fall off. It would be easy to do. Don't be such a worrier. Anyway, after that, we went to see some more lookout spots. We could see where the sides of the canyon came together. It was a great day. There weren't anybody else there. We could walk on the trails. If we'd have been in the park, we couldn't have done that. Lark, you know, there was still a bunch of rocks, but I think I understand now how people could be interested in seeing rocks after the Grand Canyon. Corey, well, it's about time. After that, we went to Bryce Canyon. It's up in the Utah. Utah has 5 national parks. We didn't get to Canyonlands or Arches because they were closed at the time, but we did get to Capitol Reef, Bryce Canyon, and Zion. Glenn and I love Zion. We actually got to hike the Narrows, which is a canyon that's a river running through it, and you actually hike in the river up with water up to your waist. But the dogs couldn't do that. They would have loved it, but so they found Bryce Canyon to be the most dog-friendly. They're going to tell you about that. If you're looking for a national park while traveling with your dog, Bryce Canyon National Park is a good option. Not only are dogs allowed on the 5-mile multi-use trail that extends from the shuttle station outside the park to Inspiration Point, but there's a half-mile trail from Sunrise Point to Sunset Point that dogs can access. I loved getting to see the national park up close. Well, Not really close, as you're 800 feet above the bottom of the canyon, which is 12 miles long and 3 miles wide, but you get to experience the national park with your human. Sometimes we were only a few feet from the edge. We walked from Sunset Point to Sunrise Point and then back to Sunset Point. Lark and I had our pictures made at all the overlooks. When we looked over the edge, we saw all sorts of beautiful things. First, there were many beautifully colored rocks. I know, Lark is bored with rocks. But they tell a story. Each layer is from a different time period, and you can see if there were volcanoes or floods by the color of the rocks. When we looked way down into the canyon, we could see trees and bushes that grew on the canyon floor. There's a whole forest down there. Along the walls of the canyon and the rim, there are tall pillars of stone called hoodoos. Native Americans thought if you went into the canyon, you turned into stone and your spirit was captured in the hoodoo. They're all different shapes, and people have given them names like Thor's, Anvil, and Queen Victoria. Mom and I could have sat there all day looking at the canyon, but Dad and Lark were ready to move on. There's a scenic drive of Bryce Canyon that canines can enjoy. We didn't do it because we've already been in the car a lot lately. But that's another experience that makes Bryce Canyon dog-friendly. Lark, wait, you didn't sing them the song about the hoodoos. I don't want to sing that song. I hate that song. It's in my head and I can't get it out. Mr. Big Stuff, who do you think you are? Lark. Another one of the great dog-friendly sites we went to was Colorado Springs, Colorado. There was a lot to do in Colorado Springs, and we stayed at Cheyenne Mountain State Park. And so Lark is going to tell you about Cheyenne Mountain State Park. She says it has a lot of things for us canines to do. There were many hiking trails around the campground that we were allowed to use. So many we took a different path every night. We went through woods and meadows and along ridges for views of the city of Colorado Springs. It was nice to be somewhere that canines were considered during park planning and construction. We discovered that underneath Cheyenne Mountain, which was right beside the campground, is the base for NORAD, North American Aerospace Defense Command. It's a 4.5-acre complex made up of 15 metal buildings. 12 of them are 3 stories tall. I can't imagine what it must be like to work underneath the mountain, but I want to find out. As soon as I can get away from Mom and Dad, I'm going to be applied to be a guard dog there. With a base so important that the missile warning system is based there, surely they need a girl like me to keep everyone safe, right? You can see that's Cheyenne Mountain right up there, and the entrance to NORAD, we could see the big gates at night all lit up. It was just crazy to think that here we were camping right there beside that. Another place we went in Colorado Springs was Garden of the Gods, and Corey had a little bit to say about that. Garden of the Gods was full of the same kind of rocks that we saw in the Southwest, Sedona and Capitol Reef, Bryce and Zion. There were concrete paths to walk past the rocks, wooden fences to keep you from getting near them, and signs with the name of the rocks. There was even a herd of deer to make Lark crazy. While it's nice that the Garden of Gods was preserved and given to the city of Colorado Springs so that it's a free place for humans and their dogs to go, I felt like going to the Garden of the Gods after seeing the other places we've been, kind of like going to the zoo after being on an African safari. We also got to go to Pike's Peak. Glenn had wanted to go there because he had heard about, he'd seen on TV a race called the Race to the Clouds, where they raced to the top of Pike's Peak. We had a great day there. It was very windy, so we didn't get to the top, but we did get to stop several places and enjoy the scenery there. We went to Cannon Beach, Oregon, which was Corey's favorite place and really one of mine too. Cannon Beach is just outside of Portland on the west coast, right on the Pacific Ocean, and Corey had a lot to say about that. Today I got to swim in the Pacific Ocean. We went to Cannon Beach, Oregon. Mom told me I would love it, but I didn't expect to see such a beautiful, wide beach. The sand was hard-packed and wet because it was a low tide. There were some rivers of water that I could play in. The waves were so high that Mom wouldn't let me go in farther than my belly, but I loved it. The water was so cold. Yeah, it was cold. Too cold for me. I personally think you have a screw loose in your head to like it so much. Oh, it was glorious. Uh-huh. Keep telling yourself that. I liked looking in the tide pools. There were big crabs and sea anemones that looked kind of creepy looking, like a space monster. Cannon Beach has these huge rocks offshore. One is called Haystack Rock. Had a lot of birds that nest there. There were ducks floating in the water. Boy, oh boy, I wanted to chase them. Yeah, it was funny how that one bird kept circling around you like it was teasing you. This is Corey again, and the best part, when we got to the section of the beach that didn't have many people, Mom let me off my leash. I ran and jumped for joy. I was so happy. And Lark reminds her, and then you pooped on the beach, right, everyone? Well, it's been a long time since I got to run. I think I may have loosened something inside me, and I did have a few sips of seawater. Mom wasn't too happy that she had to carry your leftovers home in a doggy bag. I'm sorry about that, but I couldn't help myself. Mom says we can go back to the beach every day that we're here. Lark, great. Maybe Dad and I will watch television. If you want to, but this is my dream place. I love the beach and I can't wait to go back. So then we went up into Washington. We got to see Olympic National Park and Mount Rainier, but we went to North Cascades National Park, which is a really interesting park. It's over 500,000 acres. And it's actually two parks, and in the middle of those two parks is Ross Lake National Recreation Area. And it's very hard to get into the national park. You have to go by boat, and then you have to hike. But the Ross Lake National Recreation Area is easy accessible, and also they allow dogs. So we spent a lot of time there in the Ross Lake National Recreation Area. And Lark has a story to tell about that. Corey, no more boring stuff. Tell them what I did. How many times have I told you that you have to lead up to the climax of a story? You don't go in and give away the surprise at the beginning. Readers won't stay interested. Tell the readers that I am a hero, and that should not surprise them. While many national parks have no place for dogs to hike, Ross Lake National Recreation Area doesn't have those rules, so we can go hiking. This is where the story gets good. Please quit interrupting. In the morning, Mom, Dad, Tim, and Miranda, that's our son and daughter-in-law, who had flown out to stay with us for 2 weeks, they went to Ross Lake. We went to Ross Lake area, Canyon Creek and Ross Lake Dam to go hiking. Canyon Creek was okay, but the bridge was out, so we left and went to Ross Lake Dam. Now, the surprise part. The Ross Lake Dam trail was a steep decline. I was worried Mom wouldn't make it. Why? Because she kept pulling her over rocks and she might trip? Hush, I was just trying to help. Yeah, right. We got our pictures made in front of a really pretty waterfall, and then we kept going towards the dam. Here comes the good part. Finally, Mom decided that if she went any farther, she would not be able to climb back up. So she and Dad sat on a rock while Tim and Miranda went on to the dam. They took the bear spray. That's an important part of the story. Okay, why don't you just finish the story? Don't mind if I do. Soon Dad got bored and decided to walk a little way ahead and take some pictures. Corey and I were sitting with Mom on a rock. I smelled something in the air. There was a bear around. I started barking and growling to let Mom know. You look like you had lost your mind. You scared Mom, and she started calling for Dad. That was the whole purpose of alerting them. I didn't hear you barking. I was just waiting to see if there was a real need. Well, there was, because before Dad could get back, we saw him. A big black bear. About 1,000 feet away from us, walking between the trails. He was big, really big. Well, soon Dad came back, and he saw him too. We all watched as he climbed the mountain in the direction that we needed to go to get back to the car. Mom was freaking out, saying we had to stay there until Tim and Miranda came back with the bear spray, and it was getting dark, and she didn't have a jacket. She's such a wimp. If they had just let me go, I could have gotten rid of that bear completely. I would have ripped his throat out. As it was, my barking and growling scared him away from us. I'm a hero. A self-proclaimed hero. No, Mom said I was a hero. She said we had to stay on leashes because if we tried to attack the bear, he would hurt us. Nah, I could have taken him on. Anyway, Tim and Miranda heard us calling for them, and we got the bear spray back. And then some other people found us, and we walked back to the parking lot in a big group. And I am a hero. I know I am. Some of the people were even talking about me. The people were Polish. How do you know what they were saying? A girl knows when someone's talking about her, no matter what the language. Anyway, North Cascades National Park and Ross Lake National Recreation Area are beautiful, and some parts are dog-friendly. So load up your favorite canine and take them for a walk. Do you think they'll give me a medal? We took Tim and Miranda Glacier National Park and then ended up in Montana, where they flew back home, and we started heading towards North Dakota and South Dakota. But before we got there, we had another night where we hadn't had any plans for where we were supposed to stay. And we managed to find Mekoshika State Park in Glendive, Montana, right on the boundary of North Dakota and Montana, and they had one campsite left. So we snagged it up and realized that we were at the beginning of the Badlands. So they're going to tell you about that. This is Lark starting out. You could have probably figured that out. Rocks again, more rocks. Mekoshika State Park is just one big rock. Corey. Well, there are a lot of rocks. In fact, the park looks like a miniature combination of Capitol Reef National Park and Bryce Canyon National Park. There were a lot of rock formations and hoodoos. Who do you think you're fooling? Okay. Mom was all excited about the rocks and kept saying how beautiful it was and how different from northwestern side of Montana. Mom is always surprised when the landscape changes. I don't know why everything isn't beautiful to her. Well, it is. Mekoshika looked like the moon to me, all crumbly, dry, and brown. Mekoshika means Badlands, or land of bad spirits in Lakota. We were going to see more places like that in North and South Dakota. Great. I like Mekoshika because we got to take a long walk and then sat by the fire while Mom and Dad talked about the stars. In the morning, we got up really early and went up into the hills to watch the sun come up. Yeah, real beautiful. Mom promised bacon and eggs when we got back to the trailer, but instead, she took a nap. That just gave us more time to admire the landscape. Rocks, more rocks. So we made our way from North and South Dakota and Minnesota to Boyers National Park. Finally ended up across Wisconsin to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And again, you probably hear a theme that Corey's and my favorite places are always where there's a beach. So we camped on Munising Beach, which is, we were just steps from the Lake Superior, and we went to Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore. Corey starts out, I loved our campground in Munising there. We could step right out of our trailer onto the beach. It was so beautiful, and I went swimming there. Mom and too. We could go swimming whenever we wanted to. Blah, blah, blah. Swimming is all you care about. The lake was too cold. Well, you would too if you had my nice swimming coat. I don't get cold, neither does Mom. Mom's just a nut. I like the Upper Peninsula because of Pictured Rocks. I know. I don't usually like rocks, but these were so pretty. And even though they are in the Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore, there were some trails we could walk on. And there were lots of dogs out walking. Some of them were not very kind and growled at me. Then I got in trouble for growling back. The park was very dog-friendly, but the dogs, not so much. There were a lot of pretty waterfalls to hike to. I wanted to swim under them, but the sign said we couldn't. I think if there hadn't been so many people there, Mom and I would have snuck under the fence and gone anyway. Like I said, she's a nut. At one waterfall, she got in the mud trying to take a picture, and the mud was so deep she lost her shoes. It looked like fun. The mud or the water? Both. Mud is just wet dirt. And they say, I'm the party girl. I didn't know you liked mud wrestling. I didn't say anything about wrestling. Munising was, don't say it. Just don't say it. Maybe we should have a code. CLHT. What? Shh, just whisper. I don't want Mom to go to any more cute little historic towns. She's gonna go, she's a historian. I don't know why she always gets her way. How many motorcycle museums have we been to for Dad? One. But we went to that motorcycle shop and for a t-shirt. Well, what about me? No one ever takes me where I want to go. And where would that be? Let me think. I'd like to go see the prairie dogs again. Oh, you mean where you almost tore up the inside of the car? Michigan doesn't have any prairie dogs. Then squirrels. How about some squirrels? Maybe tomorrow. Or an ice cream shop. And then we made our way down Michigan to Indiana Dunes National Park. This is also one of the newest national parks. It was Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore. The girls had a little bit of discussion there, and this was her favorite park, I think. Corey starts. Indiana Dunes National Park surprised us with so many different things to do and see. Lark. It is now my sworn duty to protect and preserve Indiana Dunes National Park. Oh, brother. Don't interrupt. I am now an official park ranger. I wear my badge proudly and will ever be vigilant to make sure that the dunes are kept intact and clean, not to mention all the other beautiful places in the park. What she means is the national parks have a program for dogs called Park Rangers. If you promise to B, bag your waist, A, always stay on a leash, R, respect wildlife, and K, know where you can go, you can get a badge to wear on your collar. Indiana Dunes was the first national park we've been to on our trip that the visitor center was open so we could get our badges. As you can tell, Lark is very proud of her badge. Well, of course I am. I am now the official warden of wildlife, lover of lakes, surveyor of scenery, marshal of the mountains, guardian of the goats, keeper of the... Enough already. The badge is really cool, but I don't think we have that much authority. Well, I think we canines have a lot to teach humans about taking care of our planet. Did you see all the trash next to the walkways over the dunes? There were dirty baby diapers there. And the Park Service doesn't have enough rangers to clean up all that mess. It's up to us to keep the park clean and nice for the next generation. Yes, I agree. Humans should also follow the park guidelines. How about we tell everyone about the many beautiful places that need to be protected? All right, but if I get a call to go on duty, I'll have to leave right away. Fine. Of course, the name Indiana Dunes gives a clue of the main attraction at the national park. Sandwiched between two industrial ports and across Lake Michigan from Chicago, Indiana Dunes National Park has 15 miles of beaches and sand dunes. But it also preserves the marshes, bogs, rookery, woods, and prairie further inland. In all, 15,000 acres. Protector of the prairie, that's me. Indiana Dunes National Park has a lot of bike and hiking trails that you can use to see the different areas. Dogs are allowed on most of the trails like the Pinhook Bog Trail, and we can go to all the beaches except the lifeguard area of West Beach. During our visit, we went to Dunbar and Kimley beaches. That's where we saw the trash in the dunes. There was trash in the dunes, but the beaches were clean with lots of cans for people to dispose of their trash, except the dopes who couldn't pick up their baby's diaper. There was about 3 feet of small rocks along the shore and then a nice sandy bottom. I really enjoyed swimming there. Yeah, Mom wanted to pick up some rocks along the shore to bring home, but I told her it was against the law to take natural things from the park. If she hadn't listened to me, I would have had to show her my badge. Look, before you get so high and mighty, let me remind you that you left a deposit on the beach, and Mom didn't need any badge to remind her to pick it up and put it in the trash. That was a sting operation to make sure she followed the rules. If she hadn't, I would have arrested her. Look, let's just finish telling the readers about what they can do in Indiana Dunes National Park. Mom says if she'd have known how much there was to do, we would have planned to stay there longer. We camped in the Dunewood campground. It was a really pretty woods and over a mile from the beach, too far to walk, but there was so much to see. Dunes, marsh, and bogs. They have a historic area called Bailey Shelburne, which is a trapper trading post in a 1900s era Swedish farmstead. But other than the beach, which Mom and I loved the most, Mom was amazed by the Century of Progress Historic District, which had 5 houses from the 1933 World's Fair in Chicago. Oh no, not another historic district. It's part of the national park that you swore to protect. After the World's Fair was over, developer Robert Bartlett brought 5 of the homes that were on display and moved them across the lake by barge and truck to Beverly Hills, which is now in the national park. 4 of the 5 houses displayed modern residential styles and construction materials unfamiliar to most Americans in the 1930s. The 5th house, called the House of Tomorrow, was a futuristic design for the 1930s. It's currently being restored. I'm trying to pay attention, but this is so boring. Mom was really impressed by the way the National Park Service has managed and preserved the homes. I never thought I would say this, but I think hearing about your swimming adventures is starting to sound interesting. Well, no matter what your interest, swimming, nature, hiking, or historic preservation, Indiana Dunes National Park has something that will appeal to you. And best of all, most of the park is dog-friendly. But don't forget your poop bags and pick up those diapers. Ranger Lark will be keeping an eye on you. There was so much more I could have told you about today. We went to Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park in Colorado. We went to a lot of the national parks and places that you could look for miles and miles. This was at Capitol Reef National Park in Utah. We took the dogs to Glacier National Park, where they were able to go up in the car and get off at the overlooks. There weren't any trails that could go on, but here you can see they're looking over at Lake Mary. So if you want to find out more, you can go to bigdogsroadtrip.com. I have some cards here that you can take with you. That's our website, has our journal with all our stories about our 7 months on the road, and a few places we went last year. We were supposed to go back to the Southwest, but our son and daughter-in-law had a baby, and so we did babysitting instead. This year we're going to New England. We're leaving in June, so you can read about the things we see in New England as we go. And so now it is time for me to answer questions. Anybody have a question that they want to ask? In the back?
Tell us about what happened to your one dog.
Okay, last fall, Corey, the Chesapeake Bay Retriever, got ill. She was in a lot of pain, and she died. So she's no longer with us, but I just recently, for Christmas, got a puppy, Legato Romagnolo. He's an Italian water dog. He's supposed to only get to about 35 pounds, so we're going to have to change the name. We might be big dogs and small dogs for a trip. But he's a joy and giving me a lot of fun with him. We'll see where he goes, whether he'll be the historian and scientist and geologist, or whether he'll be a party animal like Lark. So we'll see what happens.
And what does Lark think of him?
Lark does not like him. Lark thinks that I have betrayed her. The problem is that Lark has this weird thing about little white fluffy dogs. And guess what color Ross is? He's a little white fluffy dog. So when he loses his puppy coat and he's no longer white and he's brown, she may like him better. She likes him outside. They play together outside, but he's not really supposed to be in her house. Anybody else?
Did you use those motorcycles very often?
No! We hauled 2 motorcycles for 7 months. I think he probably rode them twice. So, no. And he's promised me when we go to New England, we're not going to take them.
Yes, but when you rode one of them, you met some really nice people.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, we did. He had one of them in the back of the pickup truck in just outside of Glacier National Park. And we were at a laundromat, and a guy rode up on his motorcycle, started talking to Glenn, and started telling Glenn all about his motorcycle collection. He has about 30 antique motorcycles. And he said, hey, you're going to be here for a few minutes, just wait here. He came back with a 1957 something Triumph motorcycle with the sidecar. He said, here's the keys, take your wife for a ride, I'll watch your stuff. So we went for a ride, and it turned out that he was the lead guitarist for Van Morrison.
How did you manage your mail and bills and all of that stuff?
Yeah, we managed our mail. Our bills were all online, so that was okay. But our mail, We managed by having it forwarded when we knew we were going to be in a town where we had a friend. We'd have our mail forwarded to the friend or family member's house. So that's how we managed our mail. Medicine is, important to all of us at our age. And again, we got our medicine by mail order and had it forwarded. We even had our dog food delivered by mail. And sometimes the campgrounds, if you call ahead, the campgrounds allow you to have your mail sent there. So we could have the dog food delivered to a campground or someplace like that. So we managed. I'll be honest with you and tell you that Glenn says he's never going to be gone that long again. This year we were gone 4 months. That was mostly babysitting. And when we go to New England, we're going to be gone 3 months, and then we're going to come home for a month, and then we're going to go back out on the road for a couple months. He's a homebody, and I'm not. I'm a gypsy.
Your dogs sound very much like our children who were teenage. When I took them over to Europe, and instead of complaining about rocks, it was not another museum, not another church.
The dogs are probably grateful that they couldn't go in the museums.
No, we threatened, we said, another comment like that, and we're going to send you back to visit Grandma down in Florida.
Anybody else?
Did you have an experience when you went from Flagstaff to Sedona to pull your RV down through Oak Creek Canyon?
We did not go through Oak Creek Campground, or Canyon. Sedona, if you can think of Sedona's down here in the desert, and Flagstaff is up here. And there's a road that your GPS will take you on that takes you through Oak Creek Canyon that is swervy. We went up there in the truck without the trailer, and it is just one hairpin turn after another all the way to Flagstaff. But they've got an interstate now that is on the eastern side of Sedona that takes you straight up to Flagstaff. It's only 20 minutes on the interstate. So that's how we knew we didn't follow the GPS on that one. I did try to do research, and even though Glenn is Mr. Spontaneous, it's really interesting how coincidentally there'll be something really cool, the place you're going to go, oh look, how would we know about this? Because I researched it.
Well, if you ever go back, you should pull an RV.
I saw some hands over here. Penny?
Tell them about your picture arrangement in your house.
Oh, yeah, we have a lot of the places that we visited. I can't remember how many I have. I have about 40. We had them made on the metal tiles. They're like 5 by 5. And so we have a wall with pictures of everywhere we went on these metal tiles.
It's beautiful.
Did you all regret the type of trailer you had? You'd like to have a different one the next time, in other ways, that you could do over here?
No, I think the trailer is good for us, partly because of the motorcycles, the back comes open. But also when the back comes open, it turns into a porch. And so there's railings that go around it. And so it expands the trailer by about another 8 feet in the back. So we have more living space. As long as the weather's nice, we open that up and we can sit out there. So I think it worked really well for us. Glenn didn't want an RV that you would have to either unhook a car or drive to all the places you wanted to go. And so the trailer worked really well for us. And it wasn't too small. 25 feet wasn't too small.
So that's why you've got a truck and the trailer versus one big unit.
Right. When we get to a campground, we park the trailer, set it up, and then we can go places without having to haul that with us. Anybody else? Well, thank you for journeying with us and hearing about some of our stories. It was a wonderful trip.